Welcome to Entrepreneurs Are Leaders, and today we have Ryan, which is Cloud Transformation Executive. So Ryan, tell us, what are the 5 steps to optimize a process in a company to make it more effective and efficient?
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Are Leaders podcast with Harry Sardinas. Interviews with world's most influential entrepreneurs that share tips about how to grow your business exponentially. Charismatic speaking, leadership, branding, marketing strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.
Sure. Hi, Harry. Thanks for having me on. That's a great question. That's what we do each and every day. So let me start at the beginning. And I think the number one thing is identifying your organizational goals first. What processes are you trying to refine? Why? What are the connected processes that you may be trying to refine? And does it impact maybe other areas of the business? And so that expectation setting or that goal setting has to happen at the executive level. Very commonly, you'll see individual departments maybe that have a particular need for just their department. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's the warehouse, maybe it's financial management in the accounting office. They may look at their needs in a silo, right? Without considering the needs of the rest of the organization. And what that can lead to in our business, which is transforming businesses through technology, is fragmented systems that don't talk to each other. And so this department goes and buys their system, and this department goes and buys theirs. And at the end of the day, you wind up doing custom integrations that have a cost and a long-term maintenance, and you don't realize the benefits. So achieving an organizational vision is extremely important. You've got to identify what metrics you're going to judge success by and how it's going to impact your people. What is the process going to be like to actually realize the project? It's going to take people's time. It's going to take obviously money. It's going to take business disruption potentially. So identifying what you want to achieve really in any venture, especially one as complicated as digital transformation, which is kind of the buzzword in the industry for what we do. You've got to first say, okay, here's what we're looking to do. And then you can go start finding the tools and the processes in which to do it. So that would be first, right? And then, so once you identify those goals, moving on and saying, well, how do we achieve this goal now? What tools do we have at our disposal? There's a lot of self-service available out there now. You've got AI, you've got, Copilot that you can go ask, how do I streamline my accounts payable process, right? You've got industry experts, consulting companies that you could pay to run a selection process for you and gather all of those goals, all of those requirements that you have. And going back to step one briefly, that's an important step in outlining your goals is documenting them. Putting them in some kind of concrete document and tracking them, right? Rather than that way, when you start to engage companies like ours, you can say, here are my requirements. Let's talk about them. And you have a starting point. Very important step in the process. So that can parlay into the second step. Of course, Mr. Selection Firm, Harry, help me find a system. What do you want to do? Here are my requirements. Let's start here. And let's talk. Let's talk about what you've seen other companies do and what other businesses in my industry might have done. Trade shows are phenomenal for this. You can go to industry shows and get into networking groups, LinkedIn groups, webcasts, podcasts, you name it, and ask, right? Hey, Mr. Door Manufacturer, we're also manufacturing doors, and we've got this problem. What did you guys do to solve it? What software are you using? What processes have you identified that can be refined? And so, that's absolutely a critical part of the process. You've got to find the hammer to meet the nail, right? We do some of that. Absolutely. Microsoft has a giant stack of applications with all kinds of different use cases, from tracking your customers to counting your money in the accounting office to managing your inventory in the warehouse or tracking your service technicians out in the field. Which tool is the right fit is going to depend on what you're attempting to do, what your budget is, what your other technology stack looks like, right? You want something that fits in with the rest of your technology solution.
And you need to choose the right tech stack.
That's right. You want to choose the right tech stack. You don't want to go get dressed in the dark with marketing picking the shirt and in the warehouse picking the pants and accounting picking the shoes, and then you look in the mirror, nothing matches, right?
And most of the time, those stacks, they need to talk among themselves. They have to be integrated with each other, correct?
That's exactly right. No question. And if you pick different ones, speak different
they won't be able to talk among themselves.
You can always pay developers to
develop the API, yeah.
API, custom integrations, it all has a cost. People think about the upfront cost sometimes, and they say, well, I'll just hire somebody to do it. Well, number one, that upfront cost is usually significant. Number two, there's an ongoing cost to that you will pay for a long time. Maintenance of those integrations. And in today's software as a service world, in the cloud world, it's more than ever, because all of these applications, they don't stay the same like they used to, where you would put an application on your server and upgrade it 5 years later and 10 years later. These applications are updated constantly by the companies that have developed them. In this case, in our case, usually Microsoft, right? Maybe 4 or maybe 8 updates a year. So if you've developed a custom integration and your target applications are constantly changing, you're going to have to pay someone to continue to do that. So getting applications that speak together natively is important. And that goes back to step one. What are we trying to do as an organization? And is everybody talking together, or are we getting dressed in the dark? Right. Mm-hmm. So very important. And then you also run into situations building software internally and developing integrations internally where you may have 1 or 2 or a very small group of people that hold the keys to some extremely important business operation processes for your organization. Maybe they developed custom software or maintain a critical integration, and they may not stick around forever. They may be out the door, and then you're trying to train someone on somebody else's application. So picking industry best solutions that integrate to what you already have, right? If you're a Google shop, you look for that kind of stuff. If you're a Microsoft shop, you look for things that integrate to Office 365 and your Microsoft Azure and everything else. So that would be step number 2, right? Pick the right tool, get some help. Don't try to do it on your own. I mean, you can use AI, you can use Google search or whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, there are experts out there that have been doing this a long time, and they can guide you. And sometimes I'll tell our clients, right, I'm here to be your Sherpa. I have gone through this for a long time, understand what's available. And, most of these business leaders are very smart people, but they're not immersed in our industry every day, all day. So let us help. Let somebody help. Could be a selection firm or a consulting company or an industry trade show. I love talking peer-to-peer networking for this piece. Once you pick a tool, right, the third step would be get ready for the project, and that has a few steps to it. Number one, make sure that you have the time internally. People are busy. And people have day jobs that are wearing them out already, and they're looking at the clock, and it's 5 o'clock, and you haven't even gotten all their work done, and they're trying to get home. Well, when you add a business transformation project on top of that, there will be a tremendous amount of bandwidth required from your internal team. No two ways about it. No company's going to come in and transform your business on their own. You've got to have subject matter experts who can tell the consulting firm, here's how we operate, and here's how I do it now, and here's how we want to do it, and here are our goals, and here's our data, and here's the Excel sheet I use for this, and the email template I use for that. Bring it all together. So there will be a load on your people internally. So you're going to want to make sure that the key people, and this is a good thing to talk to your consulting firm, whomever is going to help with the implementation of the software, ask them, you've told me how much it's going to cost me in terms of consulting, development, project management. What is it going to take me in terms of internal resourcing? How many people in each department? Who are the key people that you need, and how much of their day will be required for how long? Drill in a little bit beyond that. Maybe it's a 6-month project. At what points in this project are you going to need my team? Because you may be scheduling plans for them. Maybe you're sending somebody to a trade show, or there's a big client visit planned, or a big vendor visit planned, or a big on-site project that they're going to be gone for. You've got to plan your digital transformation projects around the availability of your team. So prepping your internal capital is a huge part of that third step, the prep step, but also making sure that your data is in order. I mean, more than ever, Harry, data has always been critical to businesses. And we've never started a digital transformation project with a company saying, I'm not worried about my old data, let's just start over, right? I mean, that's valuable stuff, your customers, your vendors, your sales history, your items. And so you're going to want to decide, how good is this data? Is it something that I'm going to get value out of, or that I need to keep for compliance purposes, or do I have, ABC construction and A.B construction, and ABC construction with
And
no
only
space?
keep the useful thing, only to keep what is useful out of this data.
Yeah, that's it.
Consume a lot of space, right? And the space is expensive.
Yeah, and space is absolutely part of it, but also, if you want to realize operational efficiency, you don't want to bring in 3 customers' records that are all actually the same company, but they were input different by 3 different people. Absolutely. You don't want to bring in vendors that you haven't bought anything from in 15 years, or items that have been discontinued for a decade, right? So that whole process of cleansing your data and understanding what needs to come forward, that should start well ahead of engaging in a paid consulting opportunity. That's a big part of the prep process. Prep your internal bandwidth, prep your data, export it from your system, and maybe hire a temp if your people are busy to cleanse it and decide, what do I want to bring? It's like when you're moving houses. I like analogies, right? You don't just want to, pick up everything in your house and move it into your new house. You're going through drawers, and you're going through cabinets, and you're going through your closets, and you're taking the stuff that you want, and you're ditching the rest, right? Let's get rid of it. And coming up with a plan, then you're going to need to probably, have access to your old transactions in some way, right? So what's the plan for that? Are you going to bring it into the new system? Are you going to archive it in a data warehouse? So data is kind of probably the second. If I were to subdivide step 3 into 3 areas, I would say number 1, the human capital side of it, critical. Number 2, prep your data, clean your data. What do you want to bring into your new house? And then number 3, document your processes in some way. Okay. So when this is important, so that number 1, it gets you thinking about, what do we do and why? Because sometimes you have an organization that's had the same processes, or maybe processes that have evolved over decades with substandard systems that don't really get the job done. And what happens is your process starts to mold itself around that old, outdated system that doesn't cut it for your business. And you develop, it grows legs. People have their own Excel sheets, and they've got their own templates, and they've got their own ways of doing everything. Well, the pitfall there is, you don't want to get into a project and say, okay, Mr. Expensive Consultant or Mrs. Expensive Consultant, rebuild all this stuff, that all these, vines that have grown around the tree that are my old systems. Like, let's cut that stuff down and look at, what are you trying to accomplish from a business perspective? Not rebuild what you had in the new system, but what are you trying to accomplish? And then let's use the tools that these applications give us the way that they're intended to be used. So this is change management, right? This is very important. And it's part of that prep phase, because you can't start change management after the project is underway. We've taken over some failed projects in the past, and that's a theme where the users, they get into, maybe test the system is the first time that they've been involved, and they say, whoa, this isn't how I work, this isn't how I operate. Well, before this whole thing even started, it's up to the leaders of the organization to say, Harry, this is how you've done it always. We are changing, and here's why. We have old, outdated systems that are insecure and that don't cut it, for our business going forward. We need you to change the way you do things inside the box of this new system. You're still going to get the same result, but we don't want to go down the road of building customizations so that you can keep your old processes. So documenting those processes, like the third kind of tenet of that step 3, it does that. It gets you thinking about your processes, and also could save you a tremendous amount of money in consulting, which is typically time and materials based, meaning, pay as you go. If the consultant's there for 40 hours, you're paying 40 hours. And so what I've seen happen for a poorly prepped project is consultants will get on site, get everybody in a room for requirements gathering. Okay, what is it you guys want to do? Clock is ticking now, right? And you've got people disagreeing on how they do things now. And, well, can you show me a document? Can you show me in the system? And you've got people kind of scrambling. The clock's burning at that point, right? You want to be prepared when the consultant shows up and the time starts ticking. Here's how I do my process now. I'll explain it for you. Here's where we're trying to get, and let them start doing the job that adds value. Not sitting.
Absolutely.
I've seen paid consultants making a lot of money, sitting with their arms crossed while everybody at the table fights about how they operate. That should be done beforehand. It's really
100%.
So that was step 3, right?
Yes.
Human capital, data cleansing, document your processes. So then you've got to get on to execution. And so execution, where the rubber meets the road, you've already selected a product in step 2. You've prepped for the project. You've identified your goals in step 1. So step 4, you get into execution, and you've got to allocate people internally and empower them to have the time that they need to dedicate. And this goes back to understanding in the last step, what am I going to need? How much time am I going to need from my accounting team? My CFO or my controller's closing the year on January, 14th still probably, or maybe we should wait and start the project till February. But you've got to give them time and not pile additional work onto these people, and empower them to actually execute the project. So the project execution, assuming you've done the other steps correctly, is going to be much smoother than it would be if you hadn't, right? So if you've prepped and you've got your requirements documented, the beginning of the project should be informing the consulting company of the what. It's analysis or requirements gathering, and helping them to wrap their heads around how they can use the tools, which is kind of the next step in that execution. Hey, it's great. You guys want to execute X, Y, and Z. Here are the configurations and the applications and the settings and the workflows that we can use to accomplish your goals. And you sketch that out and you design it. If you're doing something, complex, you also want to document how you're designing it. And, let's say you're integrating 2 systems, or if you've got a complex multi-step process. This is where you document those steps as well in the project and the execution of it, and say, and that does a few things. It gives you testing scripts for later in the project before you go live. Okay, I've got my documents now that I went through while I was designing how this is going to work. And, now before we flip the switch and go live, here you go, Mr. Accountant, go through all your processes, check the boxes, make sure everything's working. That also gives you it gives you scripts for new hires. Here's how you post a journal entry. Here's how you receive inventory. Here's how you do X, Y, and Z. So you've got that design phase, so to speak, where you're documenting the how, that you're building upon the why. Then you build it all out. Maybe there's some development. Hopefully, typically, it's mostly configuration. What I mean, the difference there is, right, we're not coding, we're setting. We're using the settings that are in the software as they're intended, and turning the knobs and flipping the switches and pressing the proper buttons to make the software do what you want. Some of these applications are tremendously complex. You may have, if you're doing an ERP project, you may have thousands of hours of consulting or hundreds of hours of consulting if you're a bit smaller. There's a lot of decision making that goes into that. So, and if I could back all the way up to step number 2, when you pick that product, you also want to make sure that you're picking an implementation partner that meshes, right? Because not all of them are the same. Some of them are bigger, some of them focus in certain industries, some of them represent a variety of products or a very narrow focus. Pick the right person, right? And so when you go through that build phase or that finalizing the configurations, that's where you're really building the whole first draft of what you're doing in this. So if I divided step 3 into 3 things, I would say step 5, the execution phase, is really 5 things. So analyze your requirements and design the how based on the what, and then build based on the design, right? Finish building your first draft. If you go back to English class, right? First draft of your paper, then get your red pen out, go through it, test, right? Do a pilot, go through all your processes and adjust it. This is your time to make sure that everything fits appropriately and that, you're going to get what you outlined in your goals back in step 1 out of the system when it's done. You're spending a lot of time and money here. You want to make sure to go through this pragmatically and achieve your goal. So in that execution phase, which is step 4 here, you go after building and configuring it. That's when that testing is the 4th phase, I would say. Preparing to go live. Absolutely, training is key in that stage as well. Empowering your team to use the software, going through repetitive transactions. Every way that you operate as a business, you want to have gone through those processes, all of them, hopefully, before you go live, because what you want to do is sort out any issues now. Anything that needs to be reconfigured or redeveloped or that's not getting you the data output that you want. You do want to do that before you go live, because when you go live and then something doesn't work appropriately because it wasn't adequately tested, you're fighting a battle then in a business critical production system, and you're going to start to potentially have a business impact at that point. Can't ship, can't invoice, can't pay my vendors, that kind of thing, does impact business. So you knock that out in the project, and you go through a checklist and you get live, and then that last phase is kind of after go live, making sure any kind of support that's needed, bug fixes, things like that. You're getting some support from the company.
Then number 5 is the support. Yeah, just don't let them just after everything is implemented deal with it, because they do need support, Ryan, correct?
That's right, absolutely. And that goes back to partner selection. When you're selecting a product and a partner, Mr. Partner, how are you going to support my organization when
Absolutely.
we go live? Hopefully it's not, well, when you go live, we're on to the next one, call us if you need us. That's not a plan. That's not a model. There should be some time budgeted in and people dedicated for a period of time to support the organization. So that whole subgroup of those 5 steps, that's executing, right? Then I would say the 5th step is refining. And that takes a little bit of time. You want to be live for a period of time, learn some lessons, and see what did we do well? What didn't we do well? And an important part of this is not over-engineering the initial build with automations and things like that. And here's why. I've seen that happen. And then, that there's a cost to it, consulting costs, development costs. Well, once you're live for 6 months, you've learned, okay, maybe we need to adjust a process. Maybe we need to do something a little bit differently, but you've already spent the money to automate now, right? And so you're a little bit stuck and you're a little bit out in front of yourself. So I recommend all the time, build the base, the foundation, right? The minimum viable product, or use an American football term, right? Blocking and tackling, right? You want the foundation set. And then as processes unfold after you're live, then you could say, okay, this works. This is great. We love this process. Now let's maybe automate it a bit and take some of the manual steps out of it and spend a little bit of extra money and make it happen. So that refining process is probably the fifth step, and growing with the solution. And hopefully you've set yourselves up for success by picking products that are in the same stack and not over engineering automation and going through the proper implementation methodology. So everything's kind of connected here, right? And change the past. So,
and then Ryan, very briefly, this is what message do you have for organizations out there? Because this is what's going on in the industry. I've been asked once to check in to talk about this topic. And it's regarding legacy, right? Companies out there, they have they are operating with old softwares. Now we have cloud computing, and basically the technology have evolved. However, the organization, the big companies, they are stuck with this legacy, and it's difficult for them to move forward because they only don't have legacy in the software. They have legacy in the softwares, in the equipment, and also the people. People don't want to change. You need to change the people. You need to change the software, and it's so massive change that some big companies prefer not to do it. And sometimes you go to even stores, and you see the software that is operating the till, and you see this is so old. How come this massive company is operating the software that is running the till is just like line. It's not even orient object. You know what I mean? So and you see, how come this huge company are operating with old software, and then they keep fixing it, this old software, this old legacy, because the team, the staff, nobody wants to change. But the truth is, things are changing. And if you don't embrace it, you're gonna be way behind. And I think, Brian, one something that you just shared, like you do it gradually, might be. I mean, you're the expert. I'm about for you to. But how these big companies can start to embrace what is something that they do have to do? It doesn't matter. They've been delaying for 10 years. They've been delaying for 20 years. Some companies, they are 30 years, and still they want to operate this with the old legacy, and it doesn't work anymore. We have cloud computing, we have servers now on the cloud, we have more power in computing. Their business can run better, they're leaving money on the table, but they are afraid. They are afraid because it's a massive change. They don't want to compromise the data, they don't want a security flow, they don't want to, definitely don't lose money, and they are stuck, and then they don't know what to do. So what message do you have for these companies briefly, Ryan? That's the last question.
Yeah, sure. So the number one thing would be, don't let yourself get in that position. I mean, I'll get to answering that a little bit more directly, but I've seen this so many times where small companies grow and avoid, maybe they're growing quickly and they're busy or they're cost averse, and they let their inadequate systems stay in place. And then those vines start to grow around the tree and shape it for years. You're right. And the processes get intertwined, and the technology, is all in-house tribal knowledge. And then the pain of ripping it out is tremendous. So biting that off before the problem gets huge and before the company gets to that size is the best thing to do. I know of one big enterprise that everybody would know in particular. I'm not going to call them out here. They started out on Google, for all their communication. And that's a great small business tool and startup tool. But typically as you grow, you're going to grow into the Office 365, the Microsoft world. Well, they let that sit. And it became so intertwined in all of their departments. When they finally made that switch to the Office 365, half the company still is on Google. They can't rip it out. There's too much pain there, right?
Wow.
Should have been knocked out before it became such a problem, before it became such a massive undertaking to rip it out.
Yeah, but that's also legacy of the people as well. How we talk with the people and say, hey, we are changing and we want you guys to change together with us, because it's just not the system and the software, it's also the people that stick to a way of doing things and way of work, and they don't want to embrace progress, no?
Yeah, you're totally right about that. There has to be executive level change management that's mandated in order to be successful in any of these projects.
Probably because the leader want to use Google. So because of the leader or some of the leader management team want to use Google, there you go. Now everybody underneath would use Google, and this nothing wrong with Google.
There's nothing wrong with Google. The tools are fine.
It just depends that the tools are if there is a new system in place that will make the company more efficient, we get the communication channel more effectively. Everybody has to embrace it. So thank you so much, Ryan, for coming to the broadcast. I really appreciate it, and for all of you following this broadcast, entrepreneurs and leaders. See you in our next episode. How amazing people like Ryan create magic for business out there. Bye for now.
Follow us for more on charismatic speaking, leadership, exponential business growth, branding, marketing, strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.